Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Grand Chief of Anishinaabe-Aski Nation has been suspended pending the results of an internal investigation.
NAN confirmed the suspension of Derek Fox in a statement issued today. Lee Noonan has more on the story and she joins us live in studio. Lee.
Thanks, Ryan. Very few details have been released so far on the reasons for the Grand Chief's suspension. NAN has only confirmed that the internal investigation was called due to alleged violations of the NAN Executive Council's Code of Conduct. NAN Grand Chief Derek Fox will remain on paid suspension until the investigation into the alleged Code of Conduct violations is concluded, or as directed by the NAN Chiefs. Fox represents 49 First Nations from the James Bay coast to the Manitoba border. He leads the NAN Executive Council alongside Deputy Grand Chiefs Bobby Narcisse, Victor Linklater, and Annabette Achnipanescum. Fox was elected to the role in August of 2021 after serving 2 terms as Deputy Grand Chief. His responsibilities include the oversight of all NAN portfolios handled by the 3 Deputy Grand Chiefs, and he's also directly responsible for the governance and treaties and infrastructure files. According to the statement issued by NAN, quote, "Immediate steps have been implemented to ensure that an orderly transition of all matters under the purview of the Office of the Grand Chief will be handled by senior management, and that this important work will continue unabated." NAN officials declined any further comment on the situation, citing a need to protect the integrity of the investigation. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The deaths of 3 people, a couple and their young daughter, have now been confirmed, following a devastating house fire in Pikangikum First Nation last week. Today at Queen's Park, Kiiwetinoong MPP Sol Mamakwa addressed the tragedy.
Bernie Turtle, 44, Kristen Moose, 38, and Kendriana Turtle, 8.
The 3 victims are survived by a teenage girl who escaped the blaze. According to a statement from the First Nation, Pikangikum peacekeepers were unable to douse the flames, saying that without an adequate building to warm the community's 2 fire trucks, the cold weather caused mechanical issues with both vehicles. Chief Shirley Lynn Keeper calls the government response unacceptable. Quote, "We have never felt so hopeless. Our ability to fight structural fires has not improved since 2016. A family of 9 died in a fire March of that year."
I was there on Saturday. The house was still smoldering. After 3 days, Speaker, because they do not have the capacity to put the fire out. This government needs to commit to a fire halt for Pikangikum, so this does not happen again.
I have suggested that in certain instances, if there's an existing fire hall, Mr. Speaker, we would be prepared to support that. But we can't do this in every single community without the full cooperation of the federal government. And I think we acknowledge here today, Mr. Speaker, that fire response, the capacity on reserve, Mr. Speaker, is something that remains a challenge for the federal government.
In a written statement, a spokesperson for the federal minister, Patty Hajdu, called the number of fires and deaths from fire on reserve, quote, "absolutely unacceptable," adding that the minister's office is planning a fire safety gathering in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, both levels of government are assisting the Independent First Nations Alliance in providing community support. The Ontario Fire Marshal and the coroner began their investigation into that fatal fire on Friday.
The Ontario Health Coalition is accusing the Ford government of deliberately underfunding the public health care system in order to bring in more privatization and for-profit clinics. This as Premier Doug Ford and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a new investment by pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca today. Siobhan Morris has the details.
A familiar, friendly greeting between the Premier and Prime Minister the week after coming to a healthcare funding deal, after the province said it wants to rely more heavily on for-profit clinics to clear surgical backlogs.
Canada has an extraordinarily strong Canada Health Act that ensures that Canadians have access to a public, universal healthcare system.
The Prime Minister didn't say yes or no when asked if the contours of the Canada Health Act need a rethink.
This government has clawed back or withheld money or penalized a number of provinces for not having lived up to the Canada Health Act, and we will not hesitate to do so going forward.
The Premier continues to insist something's got to give.
We have to start thinking outside the box. We have to start thinking differently and make bold decisions. But we'll always make sure the safety comes first, and it always will. Make sure there's no different regulations and expedite the process.
Recovering from open heart surgery, Lita Raptis had to pull out her credit card to pay for an MRI at a private clinic to decide her course of treatment.
They did tell me that there is a charge, but of course I didn't haggle. I didn't even. They told me it's going to be the charge of $2,000. I said, okay. I mean, I had no choice.
A position the Ontario Health Coalition says patients find themselves in too often.
It should not be like going to a car mechanic when you go into your doctor's office where you're told that there are a range of things that you need and the patient has no idea how to measure the veracity of these claims.
The government says it's adding guardrails.
Integrated health centres will now have to post any uninsured charges, both online or in person, and every community surgical and diagnostic centre must have a process for receiving and responding to patient complaints.
Not enough for the opposition.
So Premier just gouging patients, but more transparently. That's kind of what I got from that answer.
The government hasn't been able to say which regulator will be watching over the centres.
And that was CTV's Siobhan Morris reporting. A transport driver near Ignace has apparently gotten off with a warning following a scary incident this weekend on the Trans-Canada Highway that was caught on video. According to eyewitnesses, the driver of this tractor-trailer was spotted crossing the center line numerous times between Ignace and Uppsala. This footage, recorded Saturday afternoon near the English River, shows the big rig completely in the oncoming lane as it rounded a curve on Highway 17. The driver turned back into their own lane, just barely avoiding 4 other vehicles coming in the opposite direction, including another tractor-trailer. An OPP spokesperson says members of the Ignace detachment responded to a complaint and conducted a traffic stop. The driver was issued a written warning under the Highway Traffic Act.
4 people have been arrested following a disturbing incident inside a Finlayson Street apartment over the weekend. Police say one of the accused began banging on a man's door around 3 a.m. on Saturday, accusing him of stealing drugs. The male victim was assaulted when he opened the door, and others entered the unit. The man was handcuffed and threatened with a firearm that was later found to be a replica. Still, he managed to escape. Police arrested 3 of the suspects during a high-risk traffic stop around 5 o'clock in the morning, and a 4th suspect was arrested at a nearby home. Officers say the suspects and victim were all known to one another. 2 of the accused remain in custody, while 2 others have been released with conditions.
While the national inflation rate has eased over the past few months, food prices continue to rise with no sign of slowing down. The latest stats show an 11% year-over-year increase, and local food banks say that's resulted in higher costs and more people using their services. Since January 2022, the RFDA has seen an unprecedented 25% increase in its food delivery service and a 12% hike in expenses across the board. Officials say food inflation is also causing many in Thunder Bay to use food banks for the first time. Community Services Manager Brennan Carling says the high prices are affecting the organization all around.
It affects everybody, so it affects people who are donating. It affects people who usually give money and maybe can't give as much this year. So we apply to grants, we find alternate sources of food, transporting it here, paying for transportation, which is cheaper than buying food. So we've been creative, but soon it's going to get pretty hard.
Anyone who wants to help out can donate food at the RFDA building on Syndicate Avenue or food banks across the city.
Lakehead University has opened its 18th annual Research and Innovation Week, marking the first time since before the pandemic that the kickoff was held in person.
The theme for this year is Improving Our Lives Through Research and will be jam-packed with events and speakers throughout the next few days. Mitchell Ringos has the details.
Many were on hand for the opening ceremonies in Lakehead's Agora Center to celebrate another year of research and innovation. The day was also full of activities, including a talk by keynote speaker Julie Angus, about her adventures rowing across the Atlantic Ocean.
I'm very pleased to be able to share some of those stories today with you through my keynote, to talk about what it was like to spend 5 months rowing across the Atlantic, that connection with the environment, watching the ocean change, what it was like to row through a hurricane, and how that inspired me to change my career, to start a company that is, its mission is to help protect and understand our oceans.
Later in the day saw a panel discussion for employment opportunities, an art tour, and a trivia game. And with Research and Innovation Week running until Thursday and including around 20 more events, LU Vice President of Research and Innovation, Andrew Dean, says this is a very exciting week for the university.
I think it's also a real opportunity for us to show to the public and to others as well, what research really does at a university and why research is so important and why we're so excited about it and some of our accomplishments as well.
And with this being the first time back in person since the pandemic, Dean says they are very excited to see how many people come out to enjoy the events throughout the week.
During Research and Innovation Week, we usually get lots and lots of students involved in it. And that's one of the cool things about Lakehead University is the ability for our students to actually be there and to see what research is and to show off the research as well.
Those looking to check out what this year's Research and Innovation Week has to offer can find a full schedule on lakeheadu.ca/research and innovation. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
A local educator has been named Principal of the Year by the Catholic Principals Council of Ontario. Barb Strickland of St. Bernard School received the honor. Strickland has been with the Catholic Board for more than 20 years. The board notes she has a passion for education, illustrated by the enthusiasm that she brings to her job each day. Strickland was recognized for her ability to create a loving, compassionate, and empathetic school community. She says she's honored by the recognition and she loves her job.
I feel that we provide a safe environment for students to take risks in their learning, and we surround them with caring people who care a lot about them, and we help them to achieve their full potential. I just want to thank everybody in my personal and professional life. Professionally, I've had amazing staff, colleagues, superintendents, and directors that I've worked with, and in my personal life, my family has supported me every step of the way of this journey, so I wanted to thank them as well.
Strickland will be presented with the award at a gala in Toronto in April.
Thunder Bay correctional officers raised money for local animal rescues yesterday. The annual Corrections Cares event saw staff from the jail and the correctional center joined by a variety of animals at the 3 local Pet Value stores. For the last 4 years, the correctional officers have been raising money for various rescues and shelters across the city, and this year is no different. The volunteers sold cupcakes, pupcakes, and cookies, with all proceeds going to Thunder Dog Rescue, Murillo Mutts, and Thunderbird Raptor Rescue. At the Golf Links Road location, visitors had the chance to meet and hold a Harris Hawk from the Raptor Rescue. Organizer Dana Bruno says they're glad to help out the rescue organizations in the community.
It's great to get out of the institution, get together, fundraise for these wonderful rescues, and it's for the rescues, it's a great time for them, and I know some of them, this is one of their only means of fundraising, and some of them have more fundraising than others.
A group of local Special Olympians touched down at the Thunder Bay Airport today after a very successful provincial competition in Huntsville.
The athletes who took part in snowshoeing and cross-country skiing received a warm welcome from family members as they arrived. Vasilios Bellos reports.
It's a cause for celebration as some very talented local Special Olympics athletes returned from a provincial competition in Huntsville on Monday morning. There were smiles all around when they arrived, as family were there to greet the competitors that took part in cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. Snowshoe coach Kathy Mikuluk says while it was a successful event, the experience goes beyond just bringing home the hardware for these athletes.
They meet a lot of friends through Special Olympics and from friends from all over the country, really. So for a lot of them, as well as competing and having the fun and excitement of competing, they also get to meet with old friends. They love to travel. They just love everything about the weekend.
Twin sisters Gabby and Roberta Honish both took home silver medals in snowshoeing during the event. The sisters both say they're proud of their accomplishments, exceeding even their own expectations.
I did my best that I've ever done. And I didn't think I was going to get silver in my 400, but I did. And I was ecstatic when I got the medal at the end. And I didn't think I was going to medal anything because there was some athletes who were faster than me, but I still made it, and I got silver, so I'm happy.
Cross-country skier Noah Felice had quite the weekend, bringing home 3 gold medals. Felice explains his inspiration that drove an incredibly successful competition.
I'm probably just trying my best and hoping I could earn something for people to be proud of, like medals.
These athletes will continue their hard work with the hopes of qualifying for nationals next year in Calgary. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
Well, we're certainly proud of all of those athletes, whether they brought home medals or not. And Fiona, they touched down to some mild temperatures to start the work week. That's nice to see.
They certainly did. We started the morning fairly cool, minus 19 and a wind chill of minus 21 in the overnight hours. But basically throughout the night, the temperatures were rising, and we topped out with a high of minus 1, although wind chills did feel like minus 7. And that's because the winds were pretty gusty from the east-southeast, 24 to 44 kilometers per hour. Now, it was mostly cloudy. Just in the last couple of hours, we've had the snow move in, but the temperatures are very consistent across most of the region. To the west, we've got Atikokan at minus 3, Uppsala at minus 4, Fort Frances at minus 2. A lot of cloud cover at this hour, and wind chills are hovering around minus 6 in this region. As we head further north, similar temperatures. Red Lake is only as cold as minus 4 right now, but winds are a little bit more gusty, and it feels closer to minus 9 under mostly cloudy skies. Again, similar temperatures as you head east into Armstrong at minus 5 and Greenstone at minus 7. Now, they had a much cooler night than most areas in the region, with wind chills hitting minus 20 last night, similar to Thunder Bay. But they have warmed up to a high of minus 7, and wind chills are only making it feel a couple of degrees cooler than that. Marathon at minus 5, and Sault Ste. Marie, ironically, one of the coolest locations in northwestern Ontario at this time, because although temperatures aren't much colder than Marathon, they've had gusty winds 50 kilometers per hour, and right now the wind chill makes it feel like minus 13, so it feels a little cooler on the eastern shores of Lake Superior. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, we're looking at a very mild night. Temperature's only going to drop a handful of degrees to minus 5, and winds will taper off somewhat, but it'll still feel like minus 10, but it's the snow we're keeping an eye on. It's moving through Lake Superior. It's moving quickly. So right now, meteorologists are having trouble gauging how much is actually going to fall. Most are agreeing around 10 centimeters. Could be a little less, could be a little bit more, but you might want to plan to get your shovels ready for first thing tomorrow morning. I'll have more details later on in the news hour.
Okay, thanks a lot, Fiona. Well, more than 1 billion people across the world use TikTok, including millions of Canadians, but not on government-issued phones anymore. Ottawa is banning the social media app on its devices. We'll explain why after the break.
It is better to not have them access TikTok because of the concerns that people have in terms of safety.